Everybody, can everybody hear me? Hello. Good. Right, then we'll just give it a couple more minutes. So, quick introductions. And guys, my name is Pilot Officer John Lowthorne. I am part of the North Region team at 642 Astra Ground School. Tonight, we're going to be talking to Warrant Officer Retired Duncan Masters. And whatever questions you have, please put your little hands up. Guys, if the squadron, if you've got a question, just ask one of your staff to press the raise button, and then obviously we'll get you to ask it over Teams. So, we'll just give it a couple more minutes, just let other people come on board, and then we'll start it. He's looking very smart there, guys, at 2229. Is that right? Yeah, good. Ah, oh, right then. Well, that's 1 minute past, Duncan. So I think I'll start my introduction. So, welcome along to the seminar about Warrant Officer Duncan Masters. Duncan was in the Air Force for 40 years, I believe. I knew Duncan 20 years ago when we were both stationed at RAF Akrotiri in Cyprus. We used to run the Akrotiri Kart Club together. He was the chairman. I was one of his minions. And tonight he's going to talk about his career and all the stuff he's done in the past and all the transferable skills that you can do through engineering, hopefully inspire some of you guys to enjoy it. So enjoy the show, sir. It's over to you.
Thanks very much, John. So good evening, everyone. And firstly, thank you for inviting me to talk to you all. Hopefully, I won't ramble too much. John says he did give me an extra year's service, so 39 years service. I left last November. I joined in 1985, end of the Cold War period, which is where the military seems to be moving back to. To me, the most famous engineering group there is going, which is Trade Group 5, so with ground engineers. And my actual trade was Gentech workshops, which made me a metal worker, welder, and machinist. Where does that leave me? That left me making all the Gucci parts for aircraft, which is really good. Those who are probably aware, so engineering covers, there's 4 engineering groups. We have currently TG1, which covers all the aircraft engineering, both electronics and mechanical. We then have TG4, which covers our telecoms, and then TG5, infamous ground engineering, which are electricians, mechanics, and workshops. And then we have Trade Group 13, which a lot of people don't hear about, which is our survival equipment specialist. So they look after all the equipment that keeps the pilot alive in the aircraft, which is pretty good. So mine, yes, I joined in 1985, in the days when we could join as a junior technician, the rank that's long gone, unfortunately, replaced by the senior aircraftsman technicians or specialist, air specialist 1 technician as it is now. The big thing that has happened in probably the last few weeks, actually 1st of April, we've lost these wonderful trade groups we used to sit under, and we now sit under 11 professions, of which engineering is a profession. And within that, you will become an air specialist, whatever your profession is. So yeah, so I joined as a young lad, 21 when I joined up, so a little bit older than a lot. Certainly when I arrived at Swinderby, which was where I did my basic training up in Lincolnshire. Unfortunately, it's a trading estate now, no longer exists as a training unit. I joined actually the day I arrived was my 21st birthday. Tried to take some of my new friends down to the pub to find there was only 3 old enough to take with me. So interesting times were ahead. You, as you do now, if you went to Holton, you would do your 10 weeks where you're, sleep, not a lot, busy all the time, making bed packs, don't make those anymore. But it's just about learning about yourself, learning about other people, how to live with other people, learning how to look after your uniforms and all that sort of stuff for 10 weeks, and basically turning you from a civilian into somebody that's half useful in the military, training you to be a soldier. Whilst we don't like it, they always say we're a soldier first and a tradesman second, but I can guarantee that once you're in the Air Force, the soldier bit wanes, and you certainly are very much tradesman first and a soldier second. So from there, I then After my initial training, I went to RAF Sanathan, which again sadly closed last year, but that was the home of all ground engineering training, where I did 12 months training. So basically, I spent 3 months learning to be a sheet metal worker, and 3 months learning to be a welder. I'd already done an apprenticeship as a young lad as a machinist. So whilst when I went to the careers office, they said I wouldn't need to do that part in my training, I still had to do another 3 months of machining. So at the end of that, that was my training done. There was 12 of us on the cohort, of which 8 of us made it through. Some left because they just didn't like being in the Air Force. Some left because they failed the course. So I suppose you could say it's a fairly tough course. And most engineering courses now are between 12 and 14 months long, whichever trade you go in or specialist activity you care to take up. From there, so that was all at Sanathan. I could say I was lucky or unlucky. I got posted to 5 Squadron Sanathan, which at the time was the largest production workshop we had. There was 300 of my trade in this factory, basically making parts to order. At the time, the Tornado had just come into service. It was about 3 years old. And quite quickly, so sort of that was 85, early 90. Obviously, we had the Gulf War kickoff, and the biggest thing that the RAF had realised they hadn't done was bought any equipment that would keep the Tornado safe in desert environment, because it was been designed to fight the Cold War. So the 300 guys that I worked with spent weeks and weeks working 12 hours, 18-hour shifts, making sand packs for all the Tornado fleet, and basically trying to keep the Tornado fleet alive during the Gulf War. Really interesting work. Learned lots of stuff. It was all about hand skills. I think I knew my trade fairly well, but it was just really interesting work, getting to work on bits of aircraft. Unfortunately, I wasn't allowed to fit parts of aircraft because that's a different trade, but we made everything and fitted it to the aircraft, or up to aircraft stage. So made lots and lots of aircraft parts. And in fact, that was my time when I got to work for Battle of Britain Memorial Flight, making parts for Lancasters and Spitfires, making all new exhaust ducts. So that was interesting work from my behalf. After that period, I got posted to a really little station called RAF Newton. It used to be the home of police training, just outside Nottingham. Again, sadly, it doesn't exist anymore. In fact, it's next door to Sireston. Those of you who have probably been to gliding, and I think it's HQ Air Cadets is at RAF Sireston, which is about 4 miles up the road. From that posting, I ended up being almost a lone tradesman. There was myself and one other to keep a whole station going, making, so it was fixing their vehicles that had crashed, anything that was needed making around station, including fixing the gliders. So the twin-seater gliders you guys used to have, it was my job to look after those as well. So yeah, it's just interesting work, and it always has been. I think the thing I've enjoyed is I've been really lucky where I've been taught to fix things, but I've also been taught if I break it, I know how to fix it. So it gets more challenging. So after that, I was lucky enough to go to RAF Ascension Island, which is middle of the South Atlantic, 6 months work. Finding out there, I was welding cars up to find out that I was the only person in the whole South Atlantic at the time that could weld aluminium. And I was getting jobs coming across from St. Helena, up from the Falkland Islands, places like that, because I was the only person that was qualified to weld in that area of the hemisphere. So again, that was quite exciting. Some of the jobs that came up, thinking that there wasn't until I got home from that posting did I find out I was the only one that was actually in the area that could do the work. So that was quite interesting. Moving on, I then did a tour of Germany, which was again interesting. That was supporting again the Tornado fleet, which was now in full exercise, running across looking after no-fly zones and that, but working out of Germany. Germany, fantastic place, lovely people, learnt a new language out of it, and again the skill set carried on, mainly fixing Tornado parts, thrust, reverse thrust buckets, and things like that. But what I'm taking away from it was the skills I was learning. I was learning to make things that just don't seem to want to be made anymore. And there's a couple of bits where I've worked with industry later on, where as a young lad, I was wondered how it was made when I went into industry, and I could see the complex kit they had to make certain parts. I then realized why I struggled to carry out a repair. But as life went on, so did a few more tours around various places, and then ended up not long after going out to Cyprus, where obviously met up with John. But what had happened when I was out in Germany was I was well into my sport. I used to play a lot of rugby, a lot of hockey. Really good for Wednesday afternoons off, getting your sport. And of course, the military is very keen on sport. If you can think of playing it, doing it, taking part in it, then there's probably a club in the Royal Air Force to cover it off. But ironically, I was a really good level goalkeeper. I was combined services goalkeeper in hockey. But unfortunately, there was 4 of us in the local hockey club, so I was never getting a game. And because I worked with vehicles, one of my mates said we had a rallycross club on camp, which is where we took, in Germany, your cars had to pass a German MOT test, and if it failed, it got scrapped. And what we did was we took these scrap cars and gave them an honourable death, racing them around the various parts of the station that we were allowed to race them. So from that, a mate of mine gave me my first car, and that was in 1995. And that was the start of my motorsport career. And as John will say, he's seen me where I've got right to the very top in motorsport, as far as I can go on my own. So it's opportunities are there to be had. But I can say I've learned to ski, I've learned to scuba dive, rock climbing. I've walked all over the world, done trips all over the world, and it's all because of what the RAF's been able to give me. And they really do like your adventure. If you want to learn to ski, there's various Eagles programs you can get on. Will teach you to ski for, I think, a personal contribution of £100. So it's all doable. But as life moved on, so I came back to Cyprus, as John said. I ended up running a kart club. Totally by accident. I went to become the workshops manager, and the chairman decided that night he didn't want to be the chairman anymore and asked me to do it. And for 2 years, John and I ran it, and I think we did a pretty good job, which then led me on to many other opportunities, especially in karting. I now work with the British Kart Championship, and I've also trained people in karting, kart racing, and how to run kart meetings in Eastern Europe and Central Europe. So I spend a fair bit of time in Italy training people. So it's got this particular little thing that started off as racing a car back in 1995 has got me right up to top level motorsport now, as I see it, in karting. And I spend most weekends away kart racing. And I said, John struggles to catch up with me because I'm normally on a kart circuit somewhere. But getting back to the engineering piece, the bit that also taught me was, so for my car racing, I learned to build my own race cars from scratch. Because of my metalworking background, I could put my own roll cages in. I could even machine my own engine. So I could quite often turn up to a race meeting with a car that I had prepared myself, taking in all the engineering skills I'd learned, and be as good as somebody that had put a lot of money into their car. But I'd done it myself in work of an evening. And those skills have held me good right up until now. How does that work out? So as I've moved up through the promotion, you stay in your trade group till you're a chief technician, which is the highest rank you would get to in trade as an engineer. And then once you get promoted to flight sergeant, you then get put across. So instead of just being in charge of a workshop, I was put in charge of electricians, workshops, and mechanics. My first big job was running the general engineering flight at RAF Bryce Norton. So what did that mean? Basically, I went from having a team of 10, which would be a workshop, to having a team of 140 with 500 vehicles to look after and 4,500 pieces of aircraft equipment. So fairly big, really big jump up for running a workshop. But what I had learned about building my race cars and understanding mechanics, that when I was on the shop floor talking to mechanics, I could speak the same language and I understood what they were doing. And in some cases, I could teach them stuff. So whilst I don't hold an official qualification to be a mechanic, my self-taught piece has got me through with the trade and allowed me to carry on, even as one officer, still advising people on how to fix machines and cars. Moving that right on, so I left in November and I now work in the tank museum down in Dorset. What do you say, tanks and planes? Makes no difference. All I found is I've been able to transfer all the skills that I learned in the Royal Air Force in engineering. Everything I've learned has transferred straight across, and I've had absolutely no problems equating it to a tank over an aircraft. It's still engineering. It's still an engine is an engine, a gearbox is a gearbox. If you know how it all works, you can put it together, you can take it apart, and you can at least try and fix it. Sometimes it fail, I have to admit, failed on many occasions trying to fix things, but overall, it leaves you in a fairly good place. And it's this thing with engineering, it's very wide ranging, but the skills are totally transferable. And I can actually go right back to before I joined the Royal Air Force, saying to my dad what I wanted to do, which was to become an engine mechanic in the Royal Air Force. And at the time, the RB199 engine, which was fitted in the Tornado, was only available in Concorde. And my dad to answer to me, well, you'll never get to, once you fix an RB199 engine, where else are you going to fix it? But as you learn later on, so if you're a mechanic and you learn to fix Fords, you don't just have to stay on Fords. You can move around other garages because you know how to fix a car. And that's the way to look at engineering. Just because you've learned one particular skill doesn't mean you can't use it elsewhere. And as we know, like I say, engineering is very, very broad based. It ranges from electronics right the way through to mechanics, and each part is extremely wide. So, if you're good on computers, then there's a job for you in the RAF. If you're good with electronics, there's a job for you in the RAF. If you're good with mechanics, there's a job for you in the RAF. And certainly electricians, so you can be an electrician. Whilst you don't wire houses up, you'll wire your tents up and things like that. But one of the sides electricians go and do is they become what we call medical and dental electricians. So the guys that go around all the hospitals fixing all the specialist equipment. And what is found is a lot of the electricians that end up in that role quite often are poached by the people that need them in Civvy Street after they've left the RAF, or even before they've left, because they're so hard to train, and it's taken them long enough to train that there's always a job for them when they leave. And it's the same with a lot of the work that we do. So that's sort of a really positive issue. I left as a warrant officer. My last job was looking into the training of recruits. So it was called Requirements Analysis Wing. And what I actually did was called Training Needs Analysis. That was to make sure that if you joined up as a Trade Group 5 workshops technician, that the training you did over the 12 months you're in basic training, we were teaching you exactly what you needed to know. So the first day out of training, you would be able to do your job. And then was it what the RAF wanted you to know as well? So that was really interesting. I looked after 11 different trades. So I got to learn a lot about how the Air Force works from doing that particular job. But it's just that piece about taking it away and say whatever you learn, it's very, very transferable. And the biggest thing that civilian employees like is if you come from the military, you know how to dress, you know how to turn up on time, and you know how to do your job without having people watch you. And there's trust, a lot of trust. I've been really surprised since starting work in the civilian industry that getting somebody to turn up on work is actually a challenge on its own. So if all of you, nothing else you can do, if you can turn up to work on time, that's a starter for 10 for keeping your job. I can't believe how I have young lads working with me that just don't believe in starting work at 8 o'clock when we should start. They think that 10 past 8 is quite okay. 8:30 isn't too bad, actually. So it just doesn't sit well. But being in the military teaches you all that timekeeping and about presenting yourself and looking after yourself, things like that. How are we doing, John? Are we all right? Still awake?
Yeah, we're doing really well. I think the fact that you've skipped over some of the really important parts. So think you should tell them how that you managed to sort out the 2006 Cyprus Rally and how that we all got invited up to Nicosia to meet the president of the Motorsport Association because you designed a certain stage of that rally, and I think you need to tell the cadets all about that.
Okay, John. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So whilst in Cyprus, so say I got this wonderful job outside of being the welder on the island for the army and the RAF. It was running the kart club. It was at the time when the World Rally Championships used to come to Cyprus every year, and because we ran the club, I was quite friendly. I got to know those in the Cyprus Automobile Association. Because they wanted me to help to run their kart series out there. But when it came to the World Rally Championships, they basically approached us. They needed, not only did they needed manpower to help run the event, but they needed people that knew what they were doing. And basically, we were asked as a club to support the event and run a part of the race, which is called Parc Fermé. This is where the cars leave from every day and come back to every night. The coming back to is quite important because the cars have to arrive back in a certain time, and there's certain rules they have to follow. And basically, for 3 days, we sat in a Cyprus University, checking these cars in and out, getting to meet all the famous rally drivers of the day, but making sure they stuck with the regulations. But just a few days before that, though, we had got to go out on all the rally stages where the drivers were going, so we got to know all the stages as well. And it was 3 days off. We could say off work. It wasn't. It was really long days, really long work. But not only was that good for us as individuals, it was good because we managed to show organizational skills. And if you take the likes of John at the time was a young SAC, he could go back to his bosses and I could report to his bosses that he'd actually been able to organize something and be in control of something, while in work he couldn't display his management skills very well. But the other bit was it put the station in a good light. The station were really pleased that we went out there and did it not only for us on behalf of the kart club, but it was representing the Royal Air Force and RAF Akrotiri. And that was the bit that certainly the station commander liked when he got to hear what we'd done. In fact, I think he was slightly jealous that we got to meet all these rally drivers and didn't get to do it himself. Does that cover that one off, John? I think that was about it as I remember it.
That's exactly how it covered off. Yes, it was a great day meeting the World Rally Championship, getting to meet all the different people. It was just an amazing time as part of our career. Yes, I think that was a really good call of that. And obviously, don't forget as well that we worked with number 1 Overseas Squadron, the Air Cadets, where we brought them in to teach them how to build karts. And they actually took part in a race series, remember that correctly. And that was down to you as well, so well done. I'm just finding it really hard that you called me John and not Speedy. It's really strange, to be fair. It's not
Being polite, mate. Being polite, it's official.
That's fine. All right, guys. So we're going to put out to you now. If you want to ask Warrant Officer Masters a question, please put your hand up. If you want to put it into the chat, please do, and I will ask the questions that are in the chat. So if somebody wants to put the hand up and ask a question, please do so. Oh,
they've all fallen asleep, mate.
Have they all gone to sleep?
Yeah.
I can't believe they don't want to know about your Lewis Hamilton meetings, but we'll have a go at that. Okay, Corporal Lydia Kingsnorth, do you want to unmute yourself and ask the question? You're still on mute. This is where we find that I have to do something. 2 seconds, stay there, don't go anywhere. I'm gonna
definitely trying to ask you a question.
Try that one.
How do I go about applying for the RAF into the engineering side? That's what I'm interested in.
Well, I say it's fairly simple. I gather it might not be so simple. In theory, you should go to the careers office, but I think the best way to do it now is to look online and follow the instructions on there. Because I certainly know since COVID, our recruiting process has changed quite a lot. And I would certainly start with going online if you can't find a careers office nearby, because I know there's only a few of them left now. But if you go online, you should be able to start the application there quite easily. if you want to join. And what will happen is, certainly if you're looking at going into engineering, you normally do an aptitude test, and they will kind of guide you to what you might want to do. But it's pretty good if you've got an idea of what you'd like to do before you join, because sometimes careers office are known for getting you to do what they want you to do, not what you want to do. So be mindful of what you might want to do. But I would start with having a look online, and take the guidance from there.
Does that answer your question, Lydia?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Really, join your hand. Anybody else got any questions? I can't believe 2229 don't have any questions. They're all looking very happy there, Duncan. Look how smiley they are. Look at that.
They're smiling because they're going to about 3 minutes to go and we go home again.
Anybody questions? No further questions for RAF Masters? Okay, well, sir, thank you very much for your time and effort for tonight. It's really, really appreciated, and we'll let them all go. Keep a lookout now for the next STEM talk that's coming up. It is advertised on your local networks, and we'll see you all next time. Thank you very much, and we'll see you all later. Bye. 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 End of end. End of end. I pressed the right button.